He's Tim.
And he's Harry.
And we're about to turn paper sideways. Turn Paper Sideways is a fortnightly podcast where we talk about all things Magic the Gathering, from current affairs to our favourite format, Commander.
Join us as we break down new decks, review new sets, and discuss new and old strategies.
Find us on your podcast app, on YouTube, and on soundcloud.com/turnpapersideways.
You can also find us on Twitter at TPSMTG.
Cheerio.
Hello everyone and welcome to Fishin, the podcast where we discuss the multiverse's most competitive tribe and help the whole community become better Merfolk players. I'm Kody, one of the co-hosts of the show and not Cody Smith on Twitter. And we also have, as always, Matt. How are you doing, Matt?
I'm doing great. Summer's winding down. September's right around the corner. So it's going to be... Actually, is September 1st when we're releasing this episode? I think it is.
No, this one comes out... towards the end of the week, so it will be it will be in September.
No, it'll be on the 30th.
The 30th,
so,
yeah.
Yep. So, but most people will be listening to this in September. But yeah, it's crazy that the fall is here. In Texas, the fall is still 100 something degrees, so it's really not that different, except for people just get obsessed with football. So. Fun times.
It's the same here in Oklahoma. It doesn't really get cooler. I mean, it gets cooler for about 2 weeks at the end of November, and then it's just like bitter cold. Just dry, cold. No snow. Like not cold enough for snow, but just like
we don't get snow either.
It's like tops out in like mid 50s in the middle, like high noon, and then like drops down into the 20s at night, and it's just cold and windy and dry.
Yeah. We get about the same, but we really very rarely get to freezing, so I can't complain too much. But you're more in the the Great Plains areas. Yeah,
so like I said, it can get down into the 20s at night, but then it warms up enough during the middle of the day that we had snow in the past 2 winters once each. And it was like, like piles would form in the shade, and so it's never like it'll last over a weekend, and by Monday there will be like a little bit of slush on the roads, but mostly the biggest problem is freezing, because it gets, like I said, it gets to the 20s, at night, so roads will freeze and people don't know how to drive. So they like to do their best interpretation of a slip and slide contest.
Welcome to Fishin', your Midwestern weather pattern podcast.
Yeah, sponsored by the Weather Channel and Good Gear Blimps.
And beets. And everybody needs a beet.
Yeah.
Fact: bears eat beets. Oh. Bears beets Battlestar Galactica.
You can find Matt on Twitter as @MatthewCotto8. We want to thank everybody for sharing our show on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. You guys have been super great. Remember, you can rate us on the Apple Podcast App Store. I've actually been doing some looking, and you cannot rate podcasts on the Google Play App Store, I think. And from what I've seen, from the research I've done, and iHeartRadio, iHeartRadio, and Spotify, you can't rate there. So if you rate us in the Apple Podcast App Store, we would really appreciate it. That really does go a long way to helping push us up into the upper echelons of Magic podcasts. So if you could do that for us, that'd be great.
We would greatly appreciate that.
Or sharing a video with a friend, liking our stuff on YouTube is also a great way to keep up with our stuff. Find us on youtube.com/fishcastmtg. Make sure to follow us and dangling that boat bell, so you can keep alert when we post new videos.
Yeah, and then just interact with us too. Hit us up on Twitter. I try my best to send out a few tweets a week. With my schedule, it's a little crazy, but to anybody who direct messages me on Twitter or Facebook, I will 100% respond 100% of the time. Send us your questions, your comments. Send us video or pictures of your favorite cards, your favorite decks. Don't send us dorsal fin pics. They're aggressive and tiny, and no one really wants them.
Yeah, they're just kind of offensive.
They're a little offensive.
And the best way to support us,
if I want a dorsal fin pic, I will ask you for a dorsal fin pic.
Yes. So those are all great free ways to support the podcast. But if you would like to support us monetarily, you can find us at patreon.com/fishcastmtg, where you can become...
And we have a little contest ending this week with that, don't we?
Yes, so if you are a patron from August 15th or before, you're automatically entered for this contest. And if you become a patron before August 31st at the $2 level or higher, or become a Twitch subscriber, then you will be entered to win a box of M19, a sealed box, shipped to your door, free of charge. I've already shipped Jordan his Vindicate, so that's on its way to the UK.
Yay, Jordan.
So yeah, Jordan, thank you for winning that.
So it's shipping to the UK, so it'll probably be there sometime in 2020.
Yeah, I think that's how that works. Once it lands in the UK, they tie it to a pigeon. They tie it to
and
a
the
swallow.
pigeon just flies around until it eventually gets to you. Because everybody's so polite, they won't open your mail when the pigeon just lands on their deck.
They tie it to a swallow. I apologize. That was the obvious pun there, the obvious joke.
A European or African swallow?
It could be carried by an African swallow. Oh, yeah, an African swallow may be, but not a European swallow, that's my point. Oh, yeah, I agree with that. But then, of course, African swallows are non-migratory. Oh, yeah. So they couldn't bring a coconut back anyway. Wait a minute. Supposing two swallows carried it together? No, they'd have to have it on a line. Well, simple. They just use a strand of creeper. What, held under the dorsal guiding feathers? Well, why not?
When you're the host of a Merfolk podcast, you know these things.
Yeah. That's why we're so wise in the ways of science. And you could become a patron like Jim M did. So thank you, Jim, for becoming a new patron.
Hey,
and
Jim.
He wanted to win that box, so he joined up as a patron at the $2 level. So thank you, Jim. And Jim picked a random merfolk for us. And we have had a string of non-merfolk random merfolks. So hopefully one day we'll get back to having actual merfolk as the random merfolk. But Jim told me that he wanted pick number 77. And do you want to read this, or do you want me to read it?
You know what? This is so awful. Just go ahead.
All right. So this is a card that's actually seen a few reprints. This is Index. It's a sorcery for blue, and the particular printing that we have pulled up is the 9th edition printing. So has the beautiful white border that Magic players love and respect, and shout at Wizards all the time to bring back. And it says, look at the top 5 cards of your library, then put them back in any order. And the reason this falls under the Merfolk, or the random Merfolk category, is in the flavor text it says, let's see, Mercadia, Mercenary, Merfolk. You know, I really need a better filing system.
The flavor text isn't funny. The card's not good. The art hasn't been updated since Apocalypse, and it's not very good.
He has an epic beard. I mean, I guess if we're going by beards, like, this guy's got it. But if this isn't,
he looks like a bad drawing of the redheaded guy who's obsessed with Brianna Tarth from Game of Thrones.
I don't know what that is. So
you don't watch Game of Thrones?
No, I don't.
What's wrong with you? You know what? Let's literally just talk about Game of Thrones for the next 2 minutes rather than talk about this card.
I don't have time to watch Game of Thrones. I'm too busy streaming on Twitch at twitch.tv/fishcastmtg, where you can watch me fumble my way through leagues on MTGO, and yeah, that's fun stuff. It's fun to play Merfolk.
If I yell at you on Twitter for not watching Game of Thrones, how many retweets do I need for you to sit down and watch every episode back to back to back?
I would do it.
Break.
I would honestly do it. Just generally, like when my wife and I sit down to watch TV, we watch something that we both want to watch, and that's usually like something funny.
Jess would love Game of Thrones.
I don't know about that. Anyway,
there's equal movies and wieners for everybody.
Oh, okay. Well, that makes it fair. So Index shouldn't be in your card. It shouldn't be in your deck. Don't put it in your deck. It's bad, and you should feel bad if you put it in your deck.
Yes.
All
Yes,
right.
you should.
So let's go right into our main topic then. We are going to be discussing a little bit more lore this week, aren't we, Matt?
Yeah. So one of the things that we were kind of discussing were plainswalkers. And the major tribes all have their own individual planeswalker. And
Dinosaurs
our fishy
don't.
friends are no exception. Dinosaur isn't really a major tribe. I mean, come on. The major tribes, everybody knows what I'm talking about. It's going to be your elves, your goblins, your humans, and your fishy friends. I mean,
Mostly humans.
Zombies are kind of there. I guess they don't have a planeswalker yet. I don't think. Is there a zombie planeswalker?
No, but there's Ashiok, that's a horror.
Yeah.
And there's Tybalt, that's a demon.
That's true.
So there's kind of like around zombies, like zombie adjacent. Like there's there's different types.
There's quite a few. There's vampires. So, but yes. So we are going to actually devote an entire episode to Kiora.
Yay, Kiora! So Kiora's the sole Merfolk.
Let's real quick. We were a lot more excited going into this than we are coming out of this.
Yeah. So no, the index kind of took the wind out of us, I think. So Kiora is a pretty cool planeswalker. She's referenced on 16 cards in Magic, and she has 2 of her own. Kiora's seen some kind of play, which we'll talk about kind of towards the end. But let's go over her cards real quick because she's been printed twice. She was printed in BFZ, and her first appearance was in Born of the Gods, which is actually kind of where most of her story takes place.
Correct. So Kiora, for both of her cards, is Simic, and then 2 of anything. So 1 green, 1 blue, and 2. And she is a legendary planeswalker, obviously. So the first one, Kiora the Crashing Wave, her abilities are +1 until your next turn, prevent all damage that would be dealt to you by target permanent an opponent controls. -1, draw a card. You may play an additional land this turn. -5, you get an emblem with, at the beginning of your end step, create a 9/9 blue Kraken creature token. And she has starting 2 loyalty. So the biggest issue with Kiora, because she came out really hyped, is she doesn't really protect herself very well.
Yeah, she protects herself against one thing, and that's pretty much it. And
her loyalty was really low.
Yeah, and I played Standard quite a bit at this time around Born of the Gods, and she was used in some control decks, like Bant control decks, but you really had to build around her to be able to play her and then like bubble something, bubble an opponent's creature so that way it couldn't attack Kiora, and you also had to be able to either block your opponent's other creatures or in some other way deal with them, like with removal or something of that nature.
Yeah. So again, the first Kiora had some issues, and but this is still probably the most loved of the 2 cards.
I would say so. This is definitely the better of the 2, I'd say.
But so we had Kiora printed in Born of the Gods, and then she went away for actually quite a while. We didn't see her until Battle for Zendikar, which is everybody's favorite set, including Mark Rosewater.
I remember watching the video where they revealed the expeditions, and just like the expectations going into BFZ were so incredibly massive that it could do nothing but fail.
The problem is that yes, the expectations were huge, but Magic had come off of some huge wins previously with because Theros was a great set. Return to Ravnica
was huge.
Was awesome, and then we had our
cons.
Then we had cons, and the biggest thing about this was Modern was getting. Again, a little history lesson for you guys, impromptu, is Modern was getting insane price-wise with fetches and with shocklands. And I think the shocks were at between $20 and $40 at the time. They were very, very expensive. And then they got announced they were going to be reprinted in the
Gatecrash.
Gatecrash.
Yeah, Return to Ravnica.
Return to Ravnica. And then they got announced they're going to be reprinted in Return to Ravnica. And then you had cons come out just one set later.
2 sets later.
or 2 sets later, Theros and then Khans, which had the original 5 friend color fetch lands, which hadn't seen print since Odyssey or
Onslaught.
No, it wasn't Onslaught. Thank you.
Yep.
And again, though they were, I think the cheaper ones were like $50 a piece at the time.
Yeah, it was they were definitely hard to get.
Yeah, I think Polluted Delta was way, way, way up there. But so I mean, it brought the price of Modern down tremendously. People were buying boxes left and right, and then people were super stoked for the set coming after that, which was Battle for Zendikar. We got Expeditions, and I remember I even bought into the hype. I was super stoked. I mean, rare after mythic were getting previewed, and I'm like, oh, this set's going to be amazing. And then we actually played with them.
I remember our game actually at the pre-release that we both had black white like life gain drain decks.
Yeah.
And there was that one guy that cost a black mana and it had black fire breathing, and like I remember we each had like 4 of them. And I remember our games went to time because we just had like these sludge monsters that were like bouncing off each other, and you did beat me in that game, but I do remember very clearly that we did play each other in the BFZ pre-release. But let's talk about Kiora real quick.
Oh yeah.
So let's actually talk about the card we're here to talk about. So I'll go ahead and read Kiora, Master of Depths. As Matt said, it's 2 green and a blue for a legendary planeswalker Kiora. I have the old version up. I do not have the oracled. And she has 4 starting loyalty. So she has +1, untap up to 1 target creature and up to 1 target land, which is actually pretty good. I mean, being able to, reduce it, basically effectively reduce its cost by 1, along with a mana dork. If you untap a mana dork, having 2 mana up for like a counter spell is pretty good. So not terrible. And also getting her up to 5 loyalty is also not bad. The -2 is reveal the top 4 cards of your library. You may put a creature and or a land card from among them into your hand, and you put the rest in your graveyard, which is actually also very good. I mean, getting a creature and a land and pitching other stuff to your yard where you can use it later, that's pretty good. I mean, that's obviously not too terrible. And her -8, which also kind of leads into her character, is you get an emblem with whenever a creature enters the battlefield under your control, you may have it fight target creature. Then put 8/8 blue octopus creature tokens onto the battlefield.
So Kody, she seems like she's kind of obsessed with giant sea monsters then.
Yeah, you might say that.
Could you tell me a little more about that? Maybe a little bit of lore or history of what she does?
Well, I'll see what I can do. So I compiled some story elements from 3 places. MTG Gamepedia, which is kind of like a wiki. The Aether Hub has a couple really good videos on Kiora's history. So that's another place that you can find some good information. And obviously, our lore articles from the Mothership are definitely a good place to find that sort of thing. All right, so basically one of the biggest things is that we don't know a whole lot about, her origins. We know that she was from Zendikar. She was one of the Zendikari merfolk. We don't know how her spark ignited. However, like many of the merfolk in Zendikar, they worshipped the 3 gods, Kozi, Em, and Ula. Now, this is because, for those of you who know the story of Zendikar, basically, when the 3 Eldrazi Titans were kind of sealed away, the legend of them kind of trickled down from generation to generation into that they were gods. And the merfolk worshipped all the gods, especially Kosi, who was the trickster god. And that's kind of one of their things, was like that they were kind of a little bit tricky to deal with, and kind of lended to their ideas of life. So Kiora saw through, like, she felt that there was something wrong with like this perception of the quote unquote gods. And one of her things that she was really passionate about the ocean, or that she thought best embodied the ocean, was the leviathans, krakens, octopuses, the big baddies of the sea, the deep monsters. And so when the Eldrazi started coming back, she was summoning those monsters to help fight. So octopuses, krakens, you name it, sea serpents. So one of the things that Kiora did was she realized, like, I don't have enough big sea monsters to fight how big these giant Eldrazi are, so I need to go get some more. So she traveled the multiverse to find giant sea creatures, really, and bring them back to Zendikar, which is actually a very interesting point, because we have not seen a planeswalker, or had it referenced that a planeswalker could planeswalk something as big as a whale, through the blind eternities. That's pretty crazy.
Well, this actually kind of has a little bit of a throwback to the original Magic lore, whereas the original godlike planeswalkers from like the alpha, betas, and things like that, they would actually gain control of their creatures, and their creatures would be like stored in this kind of subplane. And when they went into battle, that's where they would summon them in. They wouldn't just like randomly like a bear would be hanging out in the woods and all of a sudden be on a battlefield. So it's kind of a throwback to that, which I always thought was very interesting.
Yeah, and I'm not saying that it can't happen. It's just this is the first post-mending planeswalker that something like this has been shown to happen. And I think it
maybe she shrinks them very tiny and puts them in like a little pouch, like she has a utility belt, and then she like throws them like Pokemon.
Yeah, maybe. I think what's really cool about it though is that it may have something to do with that she's from Zendikar, where mana is very much tied to everything very strongly. So it may just be that her connection to the ocean has allowed her more mana, or more control of her mana. I don't know. It's not really ever addressed.
I just thought it was funny that she was like, I have to go on this giant quest to catch all the Pokemon. I mean, Leviathans and Krakens, and then I'll come back and I'll be the Pokemon. I'll be the one to defeat the Eldrazi Titans. And then she went to Theros only. It's like, yeah, I'm good, and then went back.
Well, she actually went to several worlds, and
I thought she only went to Theros.
No, she went to several places. So they're not specifically addressed from what I read, but okay. She went to many places and took many different sea beasts, if you will, and that actually kind of comes into play towards the end here. So where we meet her is obviously in the story of Theros. So she comes to Theros,
but that was not the first time as players we'd seen her, correct?
Yes. So she was actually mentioned in the story in Duels of the Plainswalkers 2012. And not a lot was said about her. She was just that game is basically just full of AI characters that you just beat, in order through a story mode. So nothing of note in Duels of the Plainswalkers 2012. It's a fun standalone game if you want to play it. If you have a PlayStation 2 laying around.
But there was a lot of hype behind it because she was the Merfolk Planeswalker. Merfolk has a big following, as anybody who's listening to this podcast can probably understand. So the fact that I can't remember the exact year that Theros came out. Hopefully Kody can help me. But there was quite a lag. I think it was about 3 years before Kiora was spoiled as a planeswalker. And I remember every set that was coming out between then. It's like, is Kiora going to be in this one? Is Kiora going to be in this one? It's like, nope. And then we finally got her in Born of the Gods.
Well, so Theros was the fall set of 2013, if I remember correctly, because it was Dragon's Maze was the spring set of 2013. Then it was, the spring set, and then we had M14, which would be for the following year. And then we had, for the fall set, we had Theros.
You're right. It was 2013, September 27th, 2013.
Yeah.
So Duels of the Planeswalker 2012. I guess it doesn't matter that much. I thought there was a longer gap in between there. Maybe Duels 2012 came out like
2011.
Yeah.
Yeah, they do have weird numbering schemes. So like Commander 2018 is fine, but then we have Core Set 2019. It's just to confuse you. Don't read too far into it.
Yeah, it came out. So yeah, it came out June 15th, 2011. So again, that was about a 2-year gap.
Yeah,
2.5.
So anyway, so she comes to Theros as she had to other planes, just in search of the Leviathans and the Krakens and all that, the Moby Dicks, if you will. She's trying to find the biggest and baddest to fight the Eldrazi.
She had to beat all the gems. Get all the badges.
And the Elite Three.
To beat the Elite Three, exactly.
And so Kiora arrived to Theros during a period called the Silence. And this was a weird time. If you remember the story of Theros, Xenagos was basically ascending to godhood to try and become a god to overthrow the natural order of things. And so this was a period called the Silence where gods could not interact with mortals as they had normally. And so she enters, and what she does to try and get the big monster's attention is she creates a tsunami-like wave, and it crashes against the Polis city of Miletus, which I'm sure I'm sure that name rings a bell to our listeners. It's a pretty big in the story on a lot of cards. Canero and Tiro of Miletus. There's lots of things that go on about Miletus.
They sell great pizza in Miletus.
That's what I've heard. Anyway,
and they're very liberal on their shoe laws.
Yeah, they're definitely okay with open-toed sandals. It's okay. So
and socks and sandals. Ironically enough,
this does not cause the creatures to react as she'd hoped. But what it did do was it drew the attention of the Triton, which are the Merfolk of Theros. So the Merfolk of Theros kind of think of her as either a god herself or an avatar of Thassa, who's the god of the sea.
Actually, can I interrupt you for 1 second?
No.
No, too bad. I'm going to do it. It's already happened. So the giant tsunami that Kody mentioned is actually in her art, and that's one thing that I think Kody and I really want to touch on. Is the art of Kiora the Crashing Wave is I think the best of the two, and I think Kody agrees, but mostly because the tsunami in the background is a very Japanese-esque painting of a tsunami, and it's just really, really cool looking.
Kind of like the Great Wave, if you've seen that artwork. That's
100%.
Very evocative of that. It's not quite there, but it's very similar. So she gets in contact with the Tritons, who are the Merfolk of Theros, and some of them kind of tend to see her as either the embodiment of Thassa because they hadn't heard from Thassa in some time, or an avatar of Thassa. And so when they see her pulling giant sea creatures out of the water and then making them disappear into nothing, they start to think of her as either representative of Thassa or a god. So there are many merfolk in Theros that follow Kiora, and that does not sit well with Thassa, god of the sea. So in her travels in Theros, trying to pick up as many of these Pokemon Eldrazi killers that she can, she learns of a ship called the Monsoon, which is actually a living ship, and this living ship can take her to anywhere. But she also hears about a card that actually came up very recently, Erexmethes, I think is how you say it. Erexmethes, the Slumbering Isle. That's the biggest sea creature in all of Theros. So I have Erexmethes up, but would you like to read her, Matt?
Yeah, absolutely. Erexmethes, Slumbering Isle, enters the battlefield tapped with 5 slumber counters on it. As long as Erexmethes has a slumber counter on it, it is a land. It is not a creature. When you cast a spell, you may remove a slumber counter from Erexmethes. And Erexmethes taps for green and a blue. And it is a legendary creature Kraken that's technically a land, but it has to convert a mana cost. So it is 2 blue, 1 green, and 1 blue. Kiora, essentially. So it is, you pay 4 mana to be able to tap for a green and a blue, but once you get all the counters off, you have a 12/12 giant island fish, Kraken, Pokemon.
So in the story of Theros, Elspeth and Ajani are trying to defeat Xenagos from becoming a god. And so the way that they find that they can do it is by going through the temple of Krufix, which is the doorway to Nyx. And so but they need to find a way to get there. So what she does is they find the Monsoon, which is the living ship. So Kiora takes the identity of Caliphate, who is a legendary sea captain, basically. So they say, Caliphate says, if you give me my ship back, I'll take you to the temple, so that way you can do what you want to do. And of course she lied. She took it to go to Erexmethes to try and rouse the island. And what's funny is in the description when I read the story, she basically described it as, if you didn't look very hard, it looked like land, but it was too dark and rubbery. And how could anybody consider this an island? So she basically just takes them to Erexmethes. She gets off and just kind of is like, all right, the ship's yours, do whatever you want. And so Ajani and Elspeth leave, and so that leaves Kiora on Erexmethes, where she feels like something's going to happen. So what she does is she dives down into the water, and she rouses as many of, this is the deep seas of Theros, out really far towards the edge. She uses all of her mana to pull up as many of the deep sea creatures as she can to rouse them, and basically, because she feels like something's happening, and she comes up, and guess who's there? Thassa. And Thassa's PO'd. She is mad because,
Wait a second, who's Thassa?
Thassa, god of the sea. I've mentioned her, I think, in this story so far. And so Thassa, is mad that she's taking two things really from her. She's taking her deep sea creatures. She doesn't like that. But she's also taking away the devotion of the merfolk. And so what she does is she kind of goes like, this is the showdown. It's high noon at the OK Corral. And so Thassa brings up all of her sea krakens that are still loyal to her, her octopuses and whatnot. And Kiora pulls all the sea creatures that are loyal to her and even pulls some from other worlds to help join the fight. And it's this big showdown. She's got her krakens, Thassa's got her krakens, and it's a big showdown. And what Thassa even does is she brings merfolk from around Theros, summons them there so that they can watch Kiora lose. So there's this big fight, all these sea creatures fighting neck and neck, just biting and slapping and grabbing like the octopuses. It's a big sea battle, and so everything's kind of stalemated really for a long time. And then Kiora makes a mistake. She tries to awaken Erexmethes to fight on her behalf. So when she focuses this attention, she kind of loses power on the creature she has. So Thassa kind of starts taking back the creatures that she had lost, so it got to the point where Thassa had came up to Kiora and pinned her to the bottom of the sea with her bident, the bident around her neck. And so Thassa basically said, look, you're going to lose. You're losing, and all these merfolk are watching you lose. And Kiora was like, thanks for the gift, and grabs the bident and planeswalks away. Which is a huge revelation to Thassa, because Thassa didn't know about planeswalkers, which is crazy. That things could just disappear like that. So as far as we know, Kiora planeswalks back to Zendikar. That's the end of Act 1.
Word.
Yeah, so the rest of it's kind of short. So she goes back to Zendikar. She sees that there are very few merfolk left, and they're getting attacked by Eldrazi. So she looks at the bident, and the bident's kind of just chilling there. It's not doing anything, and she's kind of upset about that because it doesn't feel like it's as powerful. But then she gets in the water, and the bident starts to glow, and she starts commanding the sea creatures to come up. And she feels that she can use the bident to empower the sea creatures to fight in a much stronger way. So she defeats all these Eldrazi, but the merfolk don't seem too excited that she's back. Just kind of like, it's life. This is what things are. We fight the Eldrazi, and that's it. So she fights off this Eldrazi advance, and that's pretty much it for that. Except she gets to meet up with her sister, Tori, who is part of the reason her spark ignited. Basically, they were out swimming and something scared her, and she felt scared for her life, and her spark ignited. It was really boring. That's all we need to say about it.
Yeah, essentially.
So she made it back to Zendikar in time for the Gatewatch, and I even have a trademark there. The Gatewatch TM. They're about to defend Seagate. So Seagate is a big city in Zendikar where there's lots of learning and stuff like that. And Tori had told Kiora about what was happening.
There was some wreckage at Seagate, wasn't there?
Well, yeah, because the Eldrazi had torn it down. Yeah, I know you're referencing the card, the Seagate wreckage. The kind of spoiler alert, the Eldrazi tore it down. But
gosh, spoilers.
So Kiora meets up with the Gatewatch TM, and they devise this plan that they're going to stop the Eldrazi Titans, which of course at the time were only Ulamog and Emrakul. So Kozilek hadn't quite arrived there at the time. So she brought up a whole bunch of different sea creatures to fight, and they lost basically. So the Eldrazi Titans are just giant creatures that suck the life out of everything, suck the mana out of everything. So it's kind of hard to fight them. So what she does is she takes the Biden and she dives down to another card from Magic's history, or a creature from Magic's history rather, to the biggest sea creature known on Zendikar, Lorthos, the Tidemaker. Matt, could you read Lorthos for us?
So Lorthos, the Tidemaker, is 5 mana and 3 blue for a legendary creature, Octopus. He's an 8/8. So whenever Lorthos the Tidemaker attacks, you may pay 8. If you do, tap up to 8 target permanents. Those permanents don't untap during their controller's next untap steps. So if you like spending mana, you play this guy.
Yeah. So the big thing was she went to Lorthos and was like, look, these Eldrazi are going to take over and they're going to come for you next. Like, it's not, you can't just say like, oh, that's just stuff on the surface. No, they want to kill everything on this plane. They want to devour it. They want to get rid of it. So she convinces Lorthos to come up with her to fight the Eldrazi. So basically, as she's coming up with Lorthos, another friend from Battle for Zendikar, Obnixilis, completed a ritual to summon Kozilek. So basically, she arrives with Lorthos just as Kozilek is like, and coming up out of the water, right?
I'm loving the sound effects, buddy.
Yeah, I'm trying my best. So
I think you should do that one more time. Thank you.
Froosh. So anyway,
Bonesaw's ready.
So she sends Lorthos to fight Kozilek. And basically Kozilek cuts Lorthos in half. And that's it. He just cuts him in half. And at the time, Kiora was riding Lorthos, so she is plummeting to the depths of the water. And basically, as she's plummeting, because she's attached to this giant thing that's falling, she kind of has like this moment of reflection, like, I've caused a lot of problems with what I've done, like killing, like the Merfolk dying in Theros because of her pulling them away from Thassa, and just all the people that died just from like giant waves that she caused, that sort of thing. And she kind of has like a come to Heliod moment, if you will, and she passes out. But guess who finds her? Jorian, the Ruin Diver. Jorian finds her among a pile of octopus tentacles and deep sea fangly fish parts, and so he's like, hey, we gotta go. They're still fighting, and so they go back to where the Gatewatch TM and the Eldrazi Titans are fighting it out. They have some disagreements about how to take care of the Eldrazi Titans, but in the end of the day, the Gatewatch wins because they're the Super Friends, the Avengers, the Gatewatch TM, and that is it. So that's basically it. They kill the Eldrazi, and that's really all we've heard about Kiora. Is that she helped defeat the Eldrazi, and that was pretty much it.
Yeah. So we've heard Kody talk about Kiora's history and her story, and I mean, it's got some ups and downs. It's a little Pokemon-y, as we've been alluding to. Very, very heavily. So I think there's a lot of room for her to grow as a character. She's only had two printings and been in two stories, and in both of those stories, she's been kind of the sub character. As I believe Theros was more a Johnny and Elspeth story, and the Battle for Zendikar was going to be more of the Gatewatch's story. Honestly, I don't even know why she was ramrodded into that one.
Basically, I think it was just because her whole
Because
purpose
she's from there, yeah.
and her whole purpose of exploring the multiverse was to find big creatures to defend against the Eldrazi. So it does make sense, but she's definitely playing second fiddle to a 2-bit Wrestleman and his yellow dog. Really, it's not. She's not a main character in any stretch of the imagination, and that's fine. Really, she's never really been a main character.
Yeah, and again, I wouldn't be shocked to see her get reprinted here in the near future. It was actually kind of funny when we talked about doing this. We're like, well, this would be a safe one to do because we probably won't see a Kiora. And then Cody's like, she's gonna be in Return to Ravnica. Return 3. Ravnica now means business.
I hope she's in Return to Ravnica 3, but it could be something that they see, because it's actually kind of interesting that the foreshadowing of her being blue-green and then the Ixalan merfolk being blue-green, I don't know if there's any real connection between that. Maybe if somebody from WotC is listening to this miraculously, then they could shed some light on the subject, but I doubt we would find out until after the Return to Ravnica is released.
Yeah. So anyway, Kody handled the majority of the storyline. So what I said I was going to do was do a little bit of research into Kiora's playability. So if you look at MTG Goldfish and you look at let's start with Kiora the Crashing Wave. When she was initially printed, she was a little over $30. What are we at? Yeah, $30.20, I guess, was the original starting price of her. And people were actually playing it. People were very, very excited about playing with this new card. Unfortunately,
now that's pre-order price, correct?
That was pre-order price, correct. Unfortunately, it crashed pretty hard, but she stayed over a $10 card. I think she was about between 12 and 10 for a little while.
Yeah, it looks like she stayed above $20 through the beginning of cons, and stayed that way through the cons block at around $10 ish.
Yeah, well, then it dropped a little bit. Then it kicked back up, but then she got printed in a dual deck, and then she tanked out to about $3 and has been there ever since.
Yeah, you can pick up a Kiora the Crashing Wave, a foil one, for about $2 to $3.
Yeah, they're super cheap. So Kiora, I'm looking at Pro Tour finishes, actually had a little bit of success in standard back during the Theros block. Unfortunately, she was not in Theros itself, so she didn't get the full block treatment. She was printed in the Born of the Gods. So the main deck that and again, I know Kody said that he saw her quite a bit and other things, but the main deck that she saw playing was actually Bug Control. So in Bug Control, she was actually a 4 of in the main deck for most decks. And for Pro Tour Journey to Nyx, she was actually featured 3 times in 3 different Bug Control decks in the top 8. Did not win the Pro Tour. It was a junk deck piloted by Patrick Chapin that won, which kind of shows kind of the issue that Kiora ran into, because she after Journey to Nyx and Khans of Tarkir got printed, she just completely disappeared.
I think it's mostly because Khans was so aggressive. I mean, basically, like the decks adding. I mean, we had fetch lands and we had lots of low drop creatures, and so it was just a format that demanded a lot more answers than Born of the Gods could dish out.
Correct. So if you remember Born of the Gods, because the devotion decks were really, really big, and they were big for quite a while. It was just towards the end that we got away from that and started getting some 2-3 color decks in there. But it wasn't as aggressive as Kody was saying. So once Khans took over, we saw Abzan midrange really, really took over. So I think essentially you were playing Abzan or you're playing Jeskai. And it shows in the Pro Tour. finishes because at the top 8,
Siege Rhino.
yeah, 3 were Abzan, and 4 were Jeskai, and then you had 1 UB control. But yeah, Siege Rhino came in and just wrecked the house, essentially.
It did what a Rhino would do in any given situation. It just kind of it tore things up.
Correct. Again, and we had Planeswalkers still being played. A Johnny Mentor Heroes was played in this deck. Elspeth, Sun's Champion, was played for a very long time, who, in hindsight, and because we have it now, was hands down the most powerful Planeswalker printed at Theros block.
Oh, by a large margin.
Yeah, but I mean, she's still one of the more powerful ones as is. And then Sorum Solemn Visitor was printed, and he started seeing a lot more play, starting in the Cons era. Then we had Dragons came out, and again, the Dragons decks were just super, super aggressive. So we saw some Gruul decks, we saw some UB control, we saw Abzan was still kind of a thing, but again, no Kioras. So that was it. Kiora the Crashing Wave was a bump on the radar. She made a splash, pun completely intended, and then she disappeared to go hunt more Krakens.
I think one other thing before we switch over to Master of the Depths is that if you think about it, like when it was Gatecrash Theros, we had Doomblade. We had I think that's the last time Doomblade has been in Standard. But we also just had a lot of removal. There's Putrefy, there was Abrupt Decay, there was just a lot of stuff. Not Putrefy, there was Abrupt Decay. And there was a Hero's Downfall. So there was just a lot of good removal in black. And obviously this version of Kiora, the Crashing Wave, is really good at freezing up one creature. And so if you're able to just like pound removal and keep your opponents off of a lot of creatures, then this Kiora can last and actually do something.
No, absolutely. And I think Kody's really hitting the nail on the head there, is that if you look at those Standard blocks, a lot of people will say that was the last time Standard was absolutely amazing, because the Theros block was great for Standard. The Return to Ravnica block was great for Standard. And the original Innistrad block was great for Standard. And that was the last time I had played Standard, was the original Innistrad block. And then just after that, the pricing got to be a huge issue, even though the gameplay was still pretty good. And then this is about the time when Siege Rhino was around, where just one card came in and just wrecked house so much that the variety of decks just started disappearing.
And we also had Baby Jace kind of spiking super high, so we had $1,000 Standard decks.
Yeah. $125 Baby Jaces at one point, I think.
Yeah.
So anyway, that goes to say that Kiora, the Crashing Wave, never saw any real Modern play, and she never saw any Legacy play. No Vintage. Ironically, no Pauper. I don't know what happened there. I think it's a missed opportunity. Missed opportunity. She does see some play in Commander, and she should. And I think that's really where her home is. But again, the fact that she can't really protect herself very well, and the 2 loyalty really, really hurts. And this is also a post Jace the Mind Sculptor in Standard Planeswalkers, so I think Wizards was a little more cautious. And with her abilities being as powerful as they are, I think the two loyalty was very intentional.
Oh yeah, definitely. If she was at 3 to start, I think she would have been a lot better positioned.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. I mean, honestly, I think with her cost and being off colored and being at 4 mana total, I think she could have started at 3 or 4 loyalty and actually been a very fair card and very playable card at that point.
So we'll go into Kiora Master of the Depths now, and there's much less to say about Kiora Master of the Depths.
Yeah, so Kiora Master of the Depths came out. I mean, she's got some neat abilities. She came out pre-sailing at about $10, and then she immediately crashed to earth to about $3, and now I think you can pick up a copy for like under $1.
$250-ish, around $2.50.
I mean, if you can probably buy them on eBay for $150. I mean, she's not very good.
Yeah.
So again, she doesn't protect herself, and again, there was just nothing for her to do. It was a dud Planeswalker. and she just never saw any competitive play at all. She was legal for obviously Battle for Zendikar. She was legal for Shadows over Innistrad, and she was legal for Kaladesh. And Kaladesh had the energy and all that kind of stuff, and she was definitely not seeing play there. Shadows, I think we had anyway. Yeah, so she just didn't do anything. She doesn't do anything in she didn't do anything in Modern. She didn't do anything in Legacy. I think Popper was right to pass on this one. She just wasn't going to get the Popper decks there. So, and again, I assume she's played in some Commander decks, but I've literally never seen her played in any of my Commander games.
Yeah, and maybe in a Merfolk themed deck, or maybe like a Sea Monsters themed deck, sure. But as you said, she spiked at her all time high at 16-ish bucks in 2015, but then very quickly settled down to the $2 range. So nothing super spicy or anything like that. Just kind of there, just kind of exists.
Yeah. So again, we have 2 printings of our only Merfolk Planeswalker, and probably going to be the only Merfolk Planeswalker going forward. Hopefully, we see a better version in the future. I'm very hopeful that maybe like we can get one that will actually protect herself. Maybe she is going to create her +1 can be something along the lines of create 3/0/1 Kraken egg tokens, and then her 2 can be something with either draw a card, untap land, or something along those lines, like all of her minuses have been. And then her ultimate could be some giant Mewtwo type creature that comes out in Rex face.
Yeah, and I think maybe even like a 3, if Wizard dare print her at 3 mana, it may be something that could be fit into Swolfolk or something like that. But that's definitely something that's yet to be seen. Spending even 3 mana really in a deck that to basically time walk yourself and do nothing for the turn is really rough. So it would have to be super impactful for a Kiora card to break in through Modern or Legacy. Definitely, these are all, both of these cards are Commander playable, but nothing competitive, I don't think, in the long term.
No, we will see her again. Hopefully sooner rather than later, because as much as we poo-pooed her a little bit, it's not that we hate the character, it's that we hate the way that she's been treated.
Yeah, she has not received cards that have really exercised what she could be,
or storyline. To be completely honest, I think there's a lot there that can be done.
Yeah, she's definitely again very very a secondary character,
and very one-dimensional.
Yeah, very just kind of doing her thing, not really worrying about what other people are doing, and that's it. And we've seen that she has room to grow in these stories. So hopefully she grows and does some cool things. Maybe she'll be a Bant Merfolk Planeswalker. Maybe she gains some empathy and delves into white a little bit.
I would actually prefer to see her, either not Bant, but I either like to see her become either Azorius as blue-white, especially since Venser is no longer with us. R.I.P. Gonna pour a little bubbly for my fallen man. Or I'd like to see her just become mono blue and take away some of the Jace printings, because we don't need. Again, I hate. We're gonna get more Jace in
Ravnica,
in Rav 3. It's like, well, we've printed three sets without Jason. It's time. We got to bring him back.
It's I mean, we had him in Ixalan. It's been too long for Wizards to not print a Jace card, unfortunately.
Exactly.
So I think that's a good place to wrap this up. I mean, Kiora's a cool character, and I hope that we do get to see her shed in a more positive light. And that would definitely be super cool to see her in the future. Maybe we'll see her in Return to Ravnica. That would be pretty cool.
If I was to bet a betting man, it would be after that.
Okay, yeah, I could see that. But hopefully not in a Return to Zendikar.
No, I don't think we'll be going to Zendikar anytime soon, if ever again.
Maybe we could do like a Waterworld plane where it's like pirates and merfolk again, but just like better than Ixalan. No dinosaurs.
See, what they should have done was, instead of having Vraska, it should have been Kiora on Ixalan, and then Jace and Kiora could have had the relationship.
Yeah.
And made beautiful fishy babies.
Yeah. little half-gilled, whining babies running around.
That do crunches all the time.
Yeah, killer washboard abs. Remember, you can reach out and talk to us on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook as @FishcastMTG. I'm personally @NotCodySmith on Twitter. And Matt, where can we find you?
You can find me at Matthew Caudille8.
If you have a longer form question, feel free to email us at fishcastmtg@gmail.com. You can find us on twitch.tv/fishcastmtg and patreon.com/fishcastmtg. Basically, anywhere you can find us, we're at fishcastmtg or /fishcastmtg. So find us in all those places. Rate, review, subscribe, ding the bell. Do all that fun stuff.
You can ring our bell. You can ring our bell. Ring our bell, baby. Ring our bell.
That pretty much covers it for this week. Our cover art was made by Tessa and Hunter Pruitt. If you like what we're doing here, again, rate, subscribe everywhere you can find us, and we will see you all next week. Thank you so much for listening.
Have a good night, everyone.